Hello, everyone, and welcome to Revolutions Meet Your Congregation. Our guest is Heather. Heather, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we usually just start out with saying, tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you don't mind, what do you do for a living? I mean, and what do you do for fun? And, are you married? Do you have kids? All that stuff?
Sure. I'm 34. I'm engaged, and I'm from East Tennessee, but I live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And but I have a history degree, but I'm a property manager by trade. Okay. So a little bit accounting, a little bit kindergarten teacher, all that fun stuff. So that's what I do for a living. Just kind of migrated down here through work. And then found you guys, and happy to have found my church family here online for sure.
When did you find us? Do you remember?
Gosh, probably about a few months ago. I would say probably about 6 months ago.
Oh, really? So that's
cool. Pretty new.
You're a pretty new listener. We've been doing this. Revolution's been around for over 20 years, but
right.
I think we've been online for maybe 15, maybe of that 13.
That long?
It's been a long time, yeah. We
started
in Atlanta.
The Atlanta, okay.
Yeah, Atlanta started online, yeah. And I spent 7 years there.
Got a whole backlog of podcasts to listen to, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
6 years here. So 7 years there, 6 years there. That's 14, 13, maybe 14, 15. Yeah.
Adds up. Mm-hmm.
Computers were around then, right? So 6 months ago. So I guess our question is what how did you find out about us, and why do you listen? I mean, what drew you in?
Sure. So I think I shared with you guys earlier that I kind of grew up in a really religious household, and I will say religious in that sort of very strict, legalistic Southern Baptist sense. I was always told women don't speak in church. Women can't be pastors. I had a very limited sort of scope of what my life was going to be like.
Oh, geez.
In that sort of secular world, and as a woman who is very independent, and I like to think pretty intelligent, that was never really something that appealed to me. I thought, well, this just feels like a giant trap. And so for many, many years, that was how I perceived Christianity. I thought, well, if that's what Jesus is about, then I don't want any part of it.
Yeah.
But then, and of course, I kind of flirted around with some other religions, specifically studied Judaism a lot. And what really appealed to me about Judaism is that, for Jewish women, especially, Reform Jewish women, the options are open. If you want to be a rabbi, you can be a rabbi. You can be a cantor. You can study Torah. There's no difference between the women and men in those temples. And so worshipped with that congregation a while. But I always kept coming back to the idea of the teachings of Jesus, like, of course, the love your neighbor, the do unto others, all those these. The dividing the loaves and fishes, everything that Jesus really stood for. And it was confusing for a while because I couldn't reconcile that with sort of this, super legalistic, evangelical kind of culture that we see.
Yeah, it is cultural, isn't it? Those things are the things that we focus on that are so kind of gross, I think, about Christianity are culturally inherited, not necessarily black and white, written in the texts.
I blame the pastoral epistles.
Yeah, well, that's true. In some places. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you didn't at all. No, you're absolutely right. It doesn't make any sort of sense as to some of these ideas that the culture has versus what is really in the text. So when I really started reading and looking around and kind of looking at churches I could go to. Honestly, I'll be honest. I sort of have anxiety about even stepping in a church,
right?
Even for things that aren't religious related.
Yeah, me too.
It still kind of freaks me out. So I thought, well, maybe I can just give some podcast listen. And Jay, I've always been a big fan of your mom's, especially her acceptance and love for the LGBT people. Read an interview with her a while back that was just kind of the sweetest thing done at Pride a few years ago. And she, was talking about how, hey, they loved me, when I was having a really hard time. And so, I don't know, I guess that's kind of how I found you guys.
Oh, cool.
Just thought, well, we'll give this a shot, and really enjoyed the podcast. And I love following you guys on social media. It's really uplifting, and it's real, you tell it like it is, which is nice.
Oh, thank you.
Even when it's not
nice.
You want to hear what you want to hear, it's real, which I definitely appreciate.
Cool. So after stepping away from Christianity and everything like that, was there a certain church or denomination that kind of brought you back in? It sounds like you were missing the teachings of Christ and things like that. Mm-hmm. What was your gateway, I guess, back into Christianity initially?
I guess part of it is knowing some people from back home who, a friend of mine named Brianne, who is, she and her wife, Crystal, were accepted lovingly into the Episcopal Church.
Oh, cool.
And which, that wasn't really how we grew up. We didn't know any high church people, and I've known her since I was a kid.
That's how I was as a kid, too.
Yeah. So, we didn't, that was sort of strange to me that out of all the denominations that she really felt loved and accepted by Episcopals, and they are, their adopted son is he's one of the altar guys, whatever you call those, acolytes.
Yeah.
That's it. That kind of got me thinking. There are people who will affirm and accept, and they're out there.
Cool.
So
that's very cool.
That's very cool. They're a very good congregation of folks. What was I going to ask? What would you tell others about Revolution? We're trying to kind of figure out what, hearing what the congregation thinks of the church and how they communicate what the church is to others.
Yeah, we don't even hardly know what we are.
Yeah,
so we're curious to hear people
we're hopefully finding we're gonna find an answer.
I guess I would say that what I want to tell people about what Revolution is, and especially what comes to my mind. I went to Pride last year. I'm not a member of the community, but I'm an ally, so it was important to me to go.
Right.
And one thing I saw a larger number of churches who were accepting and affirming and kind of had this thing out that we accept you and want to get to know you as you are. I think that would be what I would sort of tell people about those who are curious about Revolution, is that this community, it's not people that you'll see in person, but I've gotten to kind of know you all through social media a little bit, and it's very much a community of, if you're having struggles, you don't need to hide them, and if you belong to a different community, other than cis hetero whatever,
right,
then we're going to accept you and affirm you, and you're created how you're created, and that's you're worthy and valued.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Mm-hmm. I'm really curious, honestly. I'm kind of curious about maybe going a little bit in the Southern Baptist direction, just being myself raised Southern Baptist.
Right.
This is just me kind of almost going into interview mode, but
sure.
Do you think that Southern Baptist churches down the line, in 10 years or so, could you see an affirming Southern Baptist church?
Down the road from me in Spartanburg, South Carolina, there is there's an affirming Baptist church,
right.
but it's not Southern Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
It's independent Baptist of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not sure. I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. The Methodist churches sort of went that way in certain congregations.
Yeah. They're almost 50-50 split, I think, Methodist.
About that, yeah. There's going to have to be a definite gender conversation, because the gender inequality is one thing that's probably got to be addressed before anything else.
Oh, man, that's a great point.
Yeah, somebody needs to deal with that, because that wasn't always the way they weren't always that way, and I don't know what happened because they had that kind of Reformation type of thing that happened, I think in the 50s or 60s, where the Southern Baptists kind of got more conservative.
And I feel like as culture progresses, and kind of widens and just I guess progresses with its view and on acceptance and things like that. If churches cannot keep up, then they will die. They will suffocate, or they'll
they are dying.
Of course, yeah.
And I mean, I think I mean, for me though, I was surprised. I really thought it would take 10 more years for gay marriage to be legalized.
Right.
So it moved faster than I was. I mean, I was pleased that it moved so fast, but I mean, it was faster than I thought.
Totally.
We were. I remember fighting for the rights in California. And them getting them, and then them losing them, and I mean, I did weddings, and then I was like, all of a sudden, I didn't know if the people I married were married anymore. And all these changing. That no hate campaign and all that stuff. But that happened a lot quicker. But man, Southern Baptists, I have a bad history with Southern Baptists as well, because I grew up Assemblies of God, and Assemblies of God and Southern Baptists didn't like each other, but they were both conservatively, super conservative and freaky. We let women preach, though. So yeah. So that was
hardcore.
Yeah, so they didn't like that about us. And they didn't speak in tongues.
Had a friend from high school who was Assemblies. Yeah, it was great.
These two little conservative groups fighting.
She can wear pants, but she can preach in church.
Yeah. Just, but you also lose your salvation in like a drop of a dime. So there's your trade-off. It's.
So that's interesting. Is that was something. I know that this isn't why we're called Revolution, but that was something that was kind of revolutionary about us. When being affirming was so infrequent, I guess, in churches. So maybe,
especially evangelical, and we were kind of evangelical back then.
Yeah. So maybe I'll ask you this: what would you say is revolutionary, quote unquote, about the church, about Revolution Church now? Is it just the acceptance? Is it the openness, or what would you say it is?
The honesty. Was listening to Jay's talk the other day about Jesus wept and felt abandoned, and I was like, wow, as somebody who's been through some of the same sort of situations, I felt, that's really important, that you can tell somebody we don't know, why these things happen, and to say that God is walking with you. We don't know how that works. We don't know what's true about some of this stuff and what may be hyperbole, but it was very refreshing to have somebody kind of speak so honestly. And that's one thing I like about you guys, is that it's never sugar-coated. It is what it is. And if, there's struggle, it's open, in way too many institutions, whether it's work, school, or church, you're kind of forced to put on a happy face and put on your public face.
Yeah.
But that's really not the case with y'all, and I appreciate that.
Wow. It's funny because sometimes, I worry that that's a weakness and not a strength, like I'm just like,
definitely not.
Just like throwing up on everybody, I'm like, here's my crap and here's where we're at. And I don't know about this, and it's nice to hear that and have that feedback, because sometimes you just feel like you're just,
Well, going back to Judaism, that's one thing I also liked about them, is they were very open about, hey, we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing. Sometimes the unknown is refreshing.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of getting further and further into knowing less at Revolution, and I think that scares me a little bit too, is that we're realizing that it's that the universe and everything in it
let God be God. You said that the other day.
Yeah. I mean, it's much bigger than we can grasp anymore, and you can't figure out God. If you could, you'd be God. So
whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. One of the things we've been trying to do is improve Revolution lately, especially, Caleb's come and is working with us. We're trying to get Caleb on staff, actually. And, but Caleb's helped with podcasting and getting up, his idea was meet the congregation, and he kind of, I'm kind of a slacker. So he's like, Jay, we need to do this. And now we're doing it. Thank goodness to Caleb. But, what are things that you see that Revolution could be doing better? And we're trying to ask people, what are we missing?
I think some outreach would be great. Even if you've got somebody in different cities who could show up at Pride and have a flyer and be like, hey, I don't know if you're looking for some hope, or looking for some honesty, or looking for somebody who's really a congregation who's going to tell you that that you're okay.
Yeah.
I think some more outreach would be nice. Your social media is great. So yeah, something like that. Just I think the in-person outreach, which I know can be difficult because it's an online community, I feel like if you've got enough of your representatives who will be willing to volunteer some time, and I absolutely would be, then it's
in different
doable.
cities. That'd be
that's
great.
really cool. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
I've never thought of that. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
We do have a bigger physical congregation, Jay. They're just not all here in Minneapolis.
I know, it's weird.
You know, so that's a really great.
There's more than 7 of us.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Got any other follow-ups? Or we? I just want to say thanks for listening and being a part of the show.
Oh gosh, you're very welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you
awesome
guys.
talking to such a new listener too. To someone who's only been listening for 6 months, and it's
because my past 6 months of my life have been literally until probably the last few weeks. Honestly, have been a living hell. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting to meet someone who's kind of tuned into the church in the midst of probably the darkest time of my life, and hear that kind of feedback. Is, it's means a lot to me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's cool too talking to someone who I think, like a lot of us, is often maybe triggered by being in a physical church, you know,
for sure.
and is often because we talk about the format. I know, like maybe almost a year ago, Jay, you were talking about like giving your talks from the floor instead of being on a stage, you know, and it's weird to try to deconstruct and reconstruct these expectations and the format of church and things like that. But it's cool that someone can still connect who might not otherwise be inclined to be around that environment. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, you're very welcome. It's great. I listen to it every Sunday morning. So
I'll tell my Instagram followers that you're engaged. So looks like the marriage is off.
I could have cut that out, but
yeah, it's okay.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Heather. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
hey, you're very welcome. You guys have a great afternoon.
You too.
We'll see you online.
All right. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
That was a post-Christian podcast.